Veritas Files here. I was talking about the reason for our collapse, why it is that we are in the position we're in. I was making the point that it really has much less to do with the structures that we participate in and the conspiracies that people like to bandy about, and it has much more to do with worldviews. It has much more to do with the war of ideas that we have lost so clearly in the last 50 to 100 years. I'm almost not sure where to begin. But, for example, if you go to college these days, all you'll really hear about, like I was a history major, for example. If you do that today, you may go to school and find they don't even have a Western civilization class, which if it's important to, maintain your culture and the ideas upon which it's based, because that's the only way you're going to maintain respect for the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, then you should probably have a Western civilization class. In most cases, they don't teach those anymore. And to the extent that they do, they are classes in self-loathing, classes in teaching self-hatred. You'll have to look into it for yourself to figure out what goes on in those classes, but I can tell you from my own experience, being a history major, that I learned virtually nothing in my history classes, which is a horrible thing to say, but it's true. The way I was forced to learn in my history classes was to listen very carefully to my teacher. And usually, because I already knew something about history and read, quite a bit, it didn't take long to figure out, wow, I'm being, I'm being hoodwinked here. I'm being intentionally lied to. And they don't care. I remember having a teacher who was teaching from the notes of another teacher and had been for years. And this other teacher had died, right? And he was talking about something with regard to history, and I pointed out, wait a minute, that's not true. I mean, that's not even halfway true. That's not even, you could never make a case that was true. And I told him why. And I didn't necessarily mean to, but I was kind of irritated, and I kind of embarrassed the guy in front of his class. What was striking, though, is that even though he was embarrassed because, people thought it was funny that the teacher didn't know something the students knew, this guy was irritated because he still wanted to teach what he had been teaching. He still wanted to purvey the lie, because the facts didn't matter. He didn't care about the facts at all. And this is increasingly the case. It sounds very counterintuitive, but seriously, don't dismiss what I'm saying. It is the case today that the stupidity and irrationality is now basically more a product of education than lack of education. It sounds crazy to say that, but it actually is. We are being educated, and have been, out of our common sense, out of our respect for our culture and those principles upon which it was based. It's insane. And this has been going on for years. Colleges and universities are populated by, they're not liberals, they are leftists, they are anarchists, they are communists, they are neo-marxists, and they are everywhere. They are not all of the exact same persuasion. Some of them are Fabian socialists, some of them are neo-Marxists, some of them are, any number of different variations of the same basic ideology. Western civilization is colonial. Western civilization is genocidal. Western civilization, in order to atone for its sins, must repent of what it is and must seek to rectify things by putting between the last first and the first last. Now, you'll notice, this has, incredible similarities to, sort of Judeo-Christian type theologies. You're born sinners, and in the case of Christians, Jesus Christ came to as a rescue by no obligation of God, but just because he was gracious and loving, he decided to provide rescue through Christ, and that is available to us all if we recognize our sin and repent. The difference is, that's a genuine reality. All human beings have sinned. All human beings have broken the Ten Commandments. If you were to read them, and I don't care whether you're a Christian or not, if you were to just read them, you could not say that you have not broken them. It would be impossible without you just lying or being completely crazy. So that's a genuine reality. Everybody has fallen short of perfection. Everybody has. In the case of the Marxists, the people that now are perched in our institutions of higher learning, they've turned the genuine realities on its head. Those things that made America or Western civilization great, those things are evil now. In order for technology to work, for example, there has to be things that are true and things that are false. There has to be things that are better than others. Silver, for example, is a better conductor than copper. That has to actually be true. Despite the fact that we are technologically advanced, if you apply that anywhere else, if you apply that to issues of culture or issues of moral reasoning, you might as well declare yourself an aspiring slave trader. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. You cannot say anything that makes sense today, by and large, without being thought a kook. A lot of people think they're taking a risk by talking about collapse and telling the truth about that. But I mean, come on, guys, give me a break. That's as obvious as the nose on your face. That's not a risk. Yeah, I mean, I realize it's not necessarily the most popular thing, but there's a lot of things that are true that are far less popular than the idea of collapse. You try telling people that there's an appropriate use of your sexual powers. That's designed for a certain use and not other uses. You try telling people that. You try explaining physiologically why your sexual faculties are meant to be used with certain people and not others, and why in some cases it results in disease and in other cases it results in babies. And you try making the logical physiological distinction. No religious overtones at all. This is mere mechanics, folks. This is plumbing. This is same thing as your kitchen sink, okay? You try explaining that in a rational fashion, and you are the biggest hate monger. Anyway, just nonsense is the response. Absolute nonsense. You've said nothing hateful. You've said nothing wrong. But that's not how it's taken, and it's because and I've said this before. Our institutions of higher learning have become exercises in educating us out of our common sense, educating us out of reality. It is sad, it is counterintuitive, and it is hard for anyone to believe that the place where you find the most nonsense and the least reason and the most stupidity is in those places where you are higher educated rather than lower educated. And that sounds crazy, but it's actually true. I don't know if I'll do another video on this. I may. We'll see. But I hope you guys will think about this seriously. Don't dismiss it. Look into it. Thanks.